Welcome back to the Adults Table, a Bible study with a twist. I'm
Ooh.
Rabbi Mike, your fellow guide on this exploration of sacred texts.
And hello there, folks. I'm Ryan. And we don't do typical here. Last week we undressed, if you know what I mean. The sultry poem of Shahar and Shalim illuminated a whole new view of the head of the Canaanite pantheon, El.
Darn right we did. Darn Skippy. And this week, we're not slowing down. We are headed towards another idea of motif adaptation today. You should expect a few scandals, some intriguing similarities as I unfold the Sister Wives narrative.
Ooh, Sister Wives sounds like a favorite trash TV show that I'd like to watch, but I am ready to watch this motif unfold from the Bible.
I cannot guarantee it's as good as the show, but pull
I
up a
bet.
chair, stay with us, and let's get going.
Oh, let's do it.
Yeah.
The Adults Table. Theological Conversations Uncensored.
Woohoo! Welcome back.
Woo-hoo.
Awesome. This is our seventh episode. So lucky seven, but also in biblical terms, we have now reached perfection.
Mhm.
So it's only downhill from here, folks.
Right. Well, we had a good run, but
We
yeah,
did. We did our
yeah,
best. We might have hit our peak quite quickly.
right.
Sometimes the stories go that way, right?
It's true. Hey, no big deal. If this
No
is it,
big deal.
great. I mean, the next big one is 40, I think. So,
Right,
see,
exactly. And then
that's the next
70.
one.
So
Right.
we have a few to look forward to, I
Woo
think,
woo.
at
Right
least.
on. So tell your friends so we stay on the air. Um,
Please.
so, um, so first of all, friends, I am going to be speaking about motif adaptation here with um, the sister wife narratives, and as always, just like we did with Rock Water, I'm going to have those texts in front of us so that you don't have to look anything up. But if you always want to follow along in your Bibles, that's totally fine. I'll give you those chapters and verses. Ryan will be. Oh wait, here. Ryan will be our lovely reader tonight, so that she will be able to read those to you in the English, and we will be good to go. And before we put it on the table, I just want to give a shout out to my loved ones who are experiencing some real issues over there in Israel. I have not only real family there, but also it's my Jewish homeland, and there's a great deal going over there. So,
Yes.
sending out our love to those who are the victims of terror and in the midst of a war.
Absolutely.
So I am going to let's share the screen and get all of this stuff. And let's see, make sure we can see it. There we go. Some intertextuality. But before we get started, Ryan, we got some stuff. Let's put it on the table.
Let's put it on the table.
All right, we're on the table.
We're on the
So
table.
on the table, pull up a chair. So as always, I always want to review. Just we have also more subscribers each week, so we can welcome you. So we always want to make sure that our episodes are like the episodes of Law and Order SVU, which means you can come in at any time, any season, and you're just fine. Okay, so you haven't missed. Highly recommend you going back from the beginning just because it's good information. But let's start with the idea of intertextuality. Intertextuality is literally texts interacting with one another. This occurs as we've done with texts that occur within the Torah or within the Bible themselves, or as we did last week with Ryan showing us that wonderful poem. Sometimes texts within the Bible are interacting with texts outside the Bible. And so this is a really wonderful study and topic. And it's really fascinating. So today we're going to be looking at how three texts inside the Torah, inside the Bible, literally interact with one another. Another quick review is what we're doing when we turn into when we're talking about motif adaptation. So we're talking about motif adaptation. Remember that there are ways that literature, and the Bible is literature, ways that the literature is organized, right? The genre is the big one, right? The cultural unit, the big idea, right? You walk into a bookstore, fiction, nonfiction, comedy, all that stuff, blah, blah, blah. This occurs also in the Bible, right? Is it prose? Is it poetry? All kinds of other, is it prophetic work? All these sort of things. A motif is a smaller category. There is a theme or an overarching idea, and not everything in a motif is exact, but you should be able to track a motif by looking at one where one has been adapted. In other words, you cannot identify a motif unless it's been repeated. We saw this with the rock water stuff we did 2 weeks ago. We saw it with the Noah stories, with flood, our WAP episode. And we're going to see it today. Okay. So these are right here are going to be our texts that we're going to be looking at. Feel free to look at them yourself, but I am going to have what I believe to be the best translation in there. It'll be a combination of multiple translations plus my own translation of all those sort of things. So the best sort of view from the Hebrew. That being said, if you want to look at it in a JPS or an NR, I don't know, Ryan, what do you usually typically use in terms of your translations?
I usually use the New Revised Standard version
Right,
of
the
the
Revised
updated
Standard version.
yeah,
Right,
exactly.
and that is okay.
It's not the
That is simple.
greatest, but it's kind
No,
of better than
but
the
it's fine.
rest
Exactly.
if you're just looking.
Right. And as always, if you have the King James version, just throw it out the window right now. So here we go. So what we're going to do, as we did before. Is there a question there, real quick? I'm happy to
Yeah,
answer.
well, hey, maybe. It's an
Yeah.
interesting question.
Yes, we can do that. So what you're asking is in terms of first century CE, Second Temple, what was the view of the theological view of Jews during that time in Second Temple period that that Jesus possibly associated himself with, and that I think is something worthy of discussion. But the Yahweh Elohim transition to Jesus is very complicated and not just Jewish. So there's Gnosticism in there, Zoroastrianism, paganism, all kinds of all fun sort of stuff, Roman stuff. So, but yes, that's certainly something we can put on the docket. If Ryan, if you're up for it too, you got a little Jesus history in you.
I got a little
So
Jesus in me.
yeah, yeah, we can do that. No problem. Always
Yeah.
feel free to suggest things. By the way, friend. Totally cool.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's just a really big. It's a really big
It's big.
question. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really big. There's
It's
so
not a
much
small.
to it.
It probably would be a multi-point series, but hey, we got to get to.
Right.
So we'll see what we can do.
Yep.
So, all right, we're going to start tonight of the three stories that we're looking at, which are called the sister wife narratives. This motif of sister wives, and what we're going to start with, as we did with Rock Water, is we're going to see that there are short ones and then longer ones. And what we typically understand is that the shortest version of the story is usually the original, meaning the first adapted aspect of the motif. And as it gets adapted more and more, it gets longer and longer and changed. Okay, so the first one we're going to read through is going to be Genesis 12. Okay, and this is to give you some context. We're talking about.
Oh no. I wonder if Rabbi Mike accidentally clicked out. I have a feeling that is, oh, I guess I could just fix my face until he comes back because I have a feeling he just clicked out. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. Poor guy. I probably should just go check to me. Hey, Kazi. I probably should just make sure that he has the link. Oh no, his computer died. Okay. Oopsies. You know what's so funny? As I said, it was our lucky 7. Do you think that's why it happened? Because I said that I'm not, what do you call superstitious? Like Michael Scott said, I'm a little stitious. Okay, so I'm going to try to read Genesis. Now I got to remember what that scripture was. It was Genesis, was it 19 we were at? Let me get the new revised standard version, updated edition. That's the one I usually read. Was it 19 or sorry, y'all. Oh, brother. No, I do not still worship Jehovah. I am no longer a believer. I am actually an atheist. I consider myself an atheo-pagan, and that just basically means that I'm an atheist, but I revere the traditions. I don't necessarily practice the traditions so much because I don't really know them, and I'm just kind of doing my own thing because I'm not sure how much we really know about Canaanite witchcraft, whichever you'd like to call it. So I'm trying to learn what I can and maybe just kind of create my own thing because why not? Oh, there we go. Genesis 12. I'm sorry. Okay, y'all. I'm going to start reading Genesis 12, 10 through 20. Just give me 1 second and I am going to put that on my screen for you all. This is a good show. A very good show. No, I really am interested in learning about the sister wife motif. I hadn't even realized that it was a motif, right? But there's just so many things that are becoming more apparent to me. Okay, so let's start with reading this until Rabbi Mike comes back. And there was a famine in the land, and Abraham went down into Egypt to sojourn there, for there was famine in the sore in the land. And it came to pass when he was come near to enter into Egypt, that he said unto Sarai his wife, Behold now, I know that thou art a fair woman to look upon. And it will come to pass when the Egyptians shall see that they will say, This is his wife, and they will kill me, but thee they will keep alive. Boy, there's lots of these and theys and thous in there. Say, I pray thee, thou art my sister, that it may be well with me for thy sake, and that my soul may live because of thee. And it came to pass that when Abraham was come into Egypt, the Egyptians beheld the woman, that she was very fair. She must have been a really good looking lady that he would just be passing by and people would be like, psh, 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 psh. Go tell the Pharaoh, there's a hottie patati. He might want her. And what is the Pharaoh up to that he is just like creeping on women coming into the city all like that? This is a wild ride, y'all. Wild ride. Okay. And the princes of Pharaoh saw her and praised her to Pharaoh, and the woman was taken into Pharaoh's house. And he dealt well with Abraham for her sake. And he had sheep and oxen and he asses and men servants and maid servants and she asses and camels. I don't mean to be dirty, but that's a lot of ass he traded. Oh, there we go. Welcome back, Rabbi Mike.
Hey, so sorry, guys. My computer died mid, just whatever. It was plugged in, but for some reason it just went back blank. So I'm currently on my
No
phone.
worries.
I'm on my phone right now while my computer gets enough power to recharge. But
Right.
there's plenty of stuff for us to do until then. So yes, if you wouldn't mind reading that first story for us, or if you
Yes.
did, great.
I started reading and I've gotten to, where am I? I'm at 17, I think. Yeah, I'm
Okay.
at 17 and I need to go till which one?
20.
Oh, perfect. Duh.
Mhm.
Okay. And the Lord plagued Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarah, Abraham's wife. And Pharaoh called Abraham and said, "What is this that thou hast done unto me? Why didst thou not tell me that she was thy wife? Why saidst thou, she is my sister, so that I got took to be my wife? Now therefore, behold thy wife, take her and go thy way." And Pharaoh gave men charge concerning him, and they brought him on the way, and his wife, and all that he had.
Okay, great. So
And I can make, think I can make that. Oh, I don't know if that's
yeah,
too big. Is that
no,
too
that's okay.
big?
Yeah. So what we are doing here is we are seeing, this is early stuff. This is Avram and Sarai. We're not at Abraham and Sarah yet. They haven't gone through that blessing transition yet. But this is a story, basically. The ancient Near East is a dangerous place. And basically, if you had a pretty wife, as Avram did, it was very possible that people would kidnap her, would kill you for her, try to marry her, that sort of thing, because you're the husband, and that would have been a financial benefit, right? A financial transaction. So the husband isn't necessary in that, but the brother of a woman is typically, in terms of how that would be a transaction. And so what Abraham is doing here, Avram is doing here, is lying, basically, to save him, and save himself, and to protect his wife from being, as you can see, picked up by an Egyptian ruler saying, "Yo, I want this wife to be this woman to be one of my wives."
Right.
Oh wait, hang on.
Oh, I removed
Okay,
them.
thank you.
Oh, wait.
Over
Now,
there.
well, now I just need your beautiful face.
Everybody needs my beautiful face.
It might have just be, it might, hold on. I wonder if I can, nope, I can't do any. Oh, there you go. Now there's your beautiful face.
Ta-da!
Ta-da! Boy, we are professionals. Don't you worry. We've got
Don't
this
worry.
all under wraps.
We have been through this before. Not she and I particularly, but it is possible. So here we go. Sorry, friends. Thank you for your patience this evening.
We appreciate it.
So, word. Okay. So the Egyptians see how beautiful this woman is, who Sarai is. The Pharaoh's courtier are like, dude, hot wife, great news. We got one for you. And then we have something interesting, right? Abram benefits from this, right? It's basically a
Right.
purchase. He gets sheep and oxen and ass and slaves, and he's like, hey, yeah, I benefit from that. Wonderful. Meanwhile, it's his wife, so not so morally good for us today, but in ancient
Right.
Near East stuff, it was fine. Now, here's where it gets interesting, and hopefully you guys will catch on to this. God, Yahweh, sees this happening and gives plagues to Pharaoh.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's some problems with this, right? One, Pharaoh didn't know that she was married. Abraham literally lied. Avram lied to him. And so he was just doing like no big deal, sister, whatever, right? So Yahweh comes in and gives plagues because of why, right? Because he accidentally took the wife of his patriarch. Not cool,
Mm-hmm.
not omniscient, right? Not fair. A very different view of our buddy Yahweh. Um, and and of course Pharaoh figures this out, and he goes, "What? Well, here's the interesting part, right? There's something like that's not very well written here, right? God affects Pharaoh on a plague on the account of Sarai.
Mm-hmm.
And Pharaoh says, "What have you done to me? Why didn't you tell me she was her wife?" How did Pharaoh find out?
Yeah, how did he just oh, a plague,
Right. Not very right.
she must be married. That's
She
the
must
it
be
couldn't
married.
be the
That
other
must be it.
20 things that I just did the other day.
Right, exactly. It couldn't possibly
This
be that I'm the ruler of all Egypt and I've killed thousands of people and like whatever. Like, no, it must be the wife that I just whatever it is. So not great
snagged.
writing, not great, but it's a first draft, right? We think of this as like this is the first story. So the other motif adaptions are going to try to fix this because they think the same things that we think. And he goes, "Why did you say she was my sister and I took her as a wife? Now take your wife back and get lost." Right? That's basically the story. That's basically the motif, right? A guy enters a dangerous area. He thinks my wife's too hot. Let's say she's my sister. That way, my life is spared. Who cares what happens to you?
Right.
I mean, but as long as I'm okay. And then God apparently is like, no, you're fine, Abraham. You can do this all you want. I'm going to go punish the guy who hit it and quit it with your sister or whatever. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not a great story. Probably not an original Israelite story. It doesn't seem like um, the God that we've known, sort of. It seems like not great writing. So the guess is from scholarship is that this probably came from a Near Eastern motif about some sort of wife sister situation and someone getting punished, and they were like, "This sounds great," whatever. But it's not great. I mean, it's a short, strange
Right.
incident that occurs randomly. Okay.
Right.
Um,
And I do have a question. Are you going to move on? Because I don't want, before you move on, I have a question.
ask question. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Because I don't want to interrupt.
No, no,
But
no.
but I'm like, okay, so you got me thinking about these questions. Like what are these stories for? And I thought, well, part of this could also be, could part of this also be the Bible's made such a big deal about how you're supposed to treat sojourners.
Mm-hmm.
And Abraham's thinking, he's afraid, like, oh God, they're going to treat me like other people have been treated at times. I'm thinking there must just be, bad things that happen out on the road. People are getting snatched and taken. And, if that woman looks like she's a good looking woman, like Sarai, she can just be yoinked. So is this
Right.
also like um, not undercover, but also like a little bit of like, make sure you treat people with respect who are
Mm.
sojourning, because it is a possibility that my God could send a plague to you. Like mess
It
around,
is.
find out.
Right, right. It is certainly possible. We're talking about these stories, right? And stories always have some kind of a lesson, or there's a reason.
Maybe not for us
To
per se, but
right, right. But there's always something. But it could be interpreted as as a lesson, like be careful who you marry. Like, you don't know who it is, and it
Oh, maybe
might be
that could
something
be
that,
a lesson.
when strangers come
Right.
into your land, you don't know who they are or who their God is or like whatever. Which is why, again, it's most likely not an Israelite legend. It's probably an Egyptian legend, right?
Mm. Oh,
That
yeah. Well,
someone
duh,
comes
that
into
could be possible,
Egypt
right?
and they marry the wrong wife, and all of a sudden and they're just like, well, it must be this. I mean, that makes sense in terms of. Great question, Dan. Actually, the first part of your
Maybe
question
both.
gets answered in the other motif adaptation. So yes, but yes, he was an asshole. But I mean, like a biblical asshole, so like a good guy, apparently. So
Right.
morally moral issues there. So, but yes, it was most likely came from somewhere. But again, because of the poor writing here that happens in terms of how he knows already, why did you tell me that it wasn't your wife? Like, the only way he would know that this happened is if it was already part of this cultural repertoire of Egypt, that plagues come, it must have been some sort of whatever it is. And the Israelite
Mm.
writer didn't change that, and it was just like, they'll get it. It's fine. They'll
Right.
get
The
it.
people who
Yeah.
know, who will
Right.
understand it.
Exactly.
Nobody
So
2,000 years from now is going to need to read this and understand it.
right.
I don't need to
Exactly.
explain.
Someone's going to say it's about purity culture or something.
Right. Oh,
So
gosh.
yeah. So then we have Genesis 21 through 18, which is our second motif adaptation, and as you can see already, it's longer, right?
Right.
Much more long, much longer.
Getting some
Um,
embellishment
a
finally.
little bit of
Okay. Little
embellishment.
more meat to the story. Thank you.
Exactly. So let's get to it. Let's see what they add this time.
Okay. Abraham journeyed from there to the region of the Negeb and settled between Kadesh and Shur. While he was sojourning in Gerar, I apologize for my pronunciation,
Don't be.
y'all.
It's totally fine.
Abraham and Sarah, his wife. Oh, Sarah, she is my sister. So King Abimelech of Gerar,
Abimelech. Yeah.
Oh, I was wondering if it was Abi, like father king or
Abimelech.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Daddy
Of
King. Yeah.
Daddy King. Oh, oh, goodness. Gerar had Sarah brought to him, but God came to Abimelech in a dream by night and said to him, "You are to die because of the woman that you have taken, for she is a married woman." Now Abimelech had not approached her. He said, "O Lord, you will slay people even though innocent?" He himself said to me, "She is my sister." And she also said, "He is my brother." When I did this, my heart was blameless and my hands were clean. And God said to him in the dream, "I knew that you did this with a blameless heart, and so I kept you from sinning against me. That was why I did not let you touch her." Oh,
All right. So let's
mhm.
pause there.
Oh,
Turns the
okay.
whole thing on its head,
Mhm.
right?
I was gonna say something about that to you because I
Yes.
read somewhere in my
Yes.
sojourning about tents and about like coming into a home, coming into a tent, that has like connotations to it as well.
Yes. Yes.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
So, but look at the author. We're not even finished with the story, but look what the author has done. He has already fixed some of the problems of the first one in terms of the blameless, in terms of God shouldn't be punishing people for making those mistakes.
Mhm.
But then he adds a different problem. Why is God talking to Abimelech, a non-Israelite king? And
Mm,
why is Abimelech talking to God?
right.
Right? And keeping him from sinning against him. Like, what is God doing with these other nations at this point? Right? Why? It's not Abimelech's God. It's ours. Right? He's
Right.
picked Abraham and Sarah, not this dude. So again, they're not quite there yet. They're still working out the kinks of this story, but there's still some major theological issues that it's not going so great. But they have solved some moral dilemma
Right.
in terms of, I didn't
Now
even
she's
touch her,
not touched.
dude.
Right.
Like, I'm not
Mhm.
touching her. Okay, because I was like, hey man, she's married, whatever. Um, you know, she's my sister. I didn't touch her.
I
Okay.
wonder how God did not let him touch her.
Yeah.
Like, did she have a
Also,
force field? Like maybe meow, meow.
right. Right,
Maybe
exactly.
not.
So he goes, but so then we're saying like she's my sister, but he says, when I did this, my heart was blameless and my hands were clean. Right? Meaning like when he did what?
It-
When he married her,
I
or when
guess.
he, right? Or what? Were his hands clean, but he goes, then I didn't let you touch her. So then what did he do that was
Right.
so almost bad, right?
Mm-hmm.
Again, not great writing. Okay, like this happens, guys, that there's not great writing
No.
in the Bible. It'll happen.
Mm-mm. It's
Um,
perfect. Just like the
yes.
show.
No. Oh, yes. If we don't understand the writing, it's your problem.
Sounds like a you problem.
Sounds like a you problem. You're just not holy enough. No, this is
You don't
bad
have
writing.
faith.
Okay, this is bad writing. So okay, so then we've got that. So let's move on and let's try to get through the rest of this mess here.
Okay, therefore restore the man's wife. Since he is a prophet, he will intercede for you to save your life. If you fail to restore her, know that you shall die, you and all that are yours. Ooh. Early the next morning, Abimelech called his servants and told them all that had happened, and the men were greatly frightened. Then Abimelech summoned Abraham to him and said, "What have you done to us? What wrong have I done that you should be so great a guilt upon me and my kingdom? You have done to me things that I ought not to be done." I'm sorry. That's just so funny how he
Yeah,
said it. What then Abimelech demanded of Abraham was your purpose in doing this thing? I thought, said Abraham, surely there is no fear of God in this place because, y'all are just wild and they will
right.
kill me because of my wife. And besides, she is in truth my sister, my father's daughter, though not my mother's, and she became my wife. So when God made me wander from my father's house, I said to her, let this be the kindness that you shall do me. Whatever place we come to, say there of me, he is my brother.
There you go. Again, they try to lay it out, right? Um, and that we're going to pause there for a second, right? And it all becomes like a lesson, right? So when God made me
Mhm.
wander, I said to her, let this be kind, right? And so it's like, here's it all wrapped up into a bow. And then to answer Dan's question, here's how they dealt with that part, this last paragraph.
Abimelech took sheep and oxen, and male, female, slaves, and gave them to Abraham, and he restored his wife Sarah to him. And Abimelech said, here, my land is before you, settle wherever you please. And to Sarah he said, I herewith give your brother 1,000 pieces of silver. This will serve you as a vindication before all who are with you, and you are cleared before everyone. Abraham then prayed to God, and God healed Abimelech and his wife and his slave girls. Oh, damn, they must have been sick, so that they bore
Mm-hmm.
children. For Adonai had closed fast every womb of the household of Abimelech because of Sarah, the wife of Abraham. Well, damn.
That's what I'm
He just
saying, dude.
he sealed up those wombs.
Sealed up
Talk
the
about it.
wounds.
Now he's the God who can control fertility. He controls it all, right?
Right. But again, what is going on here? Like, why is all this like, why does this matter? Why is this important to the meta narrative of Abraham
Hmm.
and Sarah? Like, why does
Yeah.
what lesson is this? But he gets a bunch of stuff. I guess it's like, go settle and you're rich, great. I'm going to give you silver and I'm going to give you all this sort of stuff. Um, and Abimelech is rewarded again by a different god. So did Abimelech become Israelite? Not really. He just benefited from another god, or
Mm.
which is fine. But as you can see here, guys, we see the motif, sort of evolving. Right? We've got the idea of a man who encounters a ruler, tries to save his life by saying it's his sister. In the first story, weird stuff happens, but he gets away. In this story, it's like, hey, good job, everyone. Everyone did everything right.
Right.
let's reward everyone. And, there you go. Great stuff. Still some
Everybody
weird
gets a
things.
participation reward in this one.
Right.
Everyone's get a little.
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Abraham did quite well for himself.
He did. Yes. He goes, I thought, truly there's no fear of God in this place. They will kill me because of my wife. I think that's a fair assumption that Abraham was making, considering nobody even knew Yahweh, apparently. Why would there be any fear of him? But I said to her,
see.
let this kindness that you shall do to me, whatever place we come to, say there of me, he is my brother. In other words, like, we can benefit from this. And look, we did. I got tons. So Abraham gets rich because of this scheme, basically.
And it's so funny. He's like, she really is my sister. So
Yeah,
honestly, I wasn't even lying to you.
I wasn't even lying.
Just so you know.
Right. So he's like, I know some people may just say that, but she really is my sister. So give me money.
Money, please.
Again, the moral issues in terms of Abraham, in terms of Sarah's participation, which is not mentioned much, like she just goes along with this.
Right.
And then with God's intervention, the divine intervention of like, what the heck's going on? Why does he care? Why would Abimelech care? Why would, it's just a very weird, the motif is a weird one, and they just keep trying to make it Israelite, and it's not going well, basically. All right, last one. We finally have, now this is a great transition here because a motif does not necessarily need to have the same characters.
Right.
Okay, and so we're going to move from Abraham and Sarah to new characters, but the same motif.
Okay. There was a famine in the land aside from the previous famine that had occurred in the days of Abraham, and Isaac went to Abimelech, king of the Philistines, in Gerar. Adonai had appeared to him and said, do not go down into Egypt, stay in the land which I point out to you. Reside in this land, and I will be with you and bless you. I will assign all these lands to you and your heirs, fulfilling the oath that I swore to your father Abraham. I will make your heirs as numerous as the stars of heaven, and assign to you heirs all these lands, so that all the nations of the earth shall bless themselves by your heirs, inasmuch as Abraham obeyed me and kept my charge, my commandments, my laws, and my teachings. So Isaac stayed in Gerar. When the men of the place asked him about his wife, he said, she is my sister. For he was afraid to say, my wife, thinking the men of the place might kill me on account of Rebekah, for she is beautiful. When some time had passed, Abimelech, king of the Philistines, looking out of the window, saw Isaac fondling his wife Rebekah. Abimelech then charged all the people, saying, anyone who molests this man or his wife shall be put to death. Abimelech sent for Isaac and said, so she is your wife? Why then did you say she is my sister? Isaac said to him, because I thought I might lose my life on account of her. Abimelech said, what have you done to us? One of the people might have lain with your wife, and you would have brought guilt upon us. Abimelech then charged all the people, saying, anyone who molests this man or his wife shall be put to death. Isaac sowed in that land and reaped 100-fold the same year. Adonai blessed him, and the man grew richer and richer until he was very wealthy. He acquired flocks of herds and large household, so that the Philistines envied him. And the Philistines stopped up all the wells which his father's servants had dug in the days of his father Abraham, filling them with earth. And Abimelech said to Isaac, go away from us, for you have become far too big for us.
Yeah, you become too big, brother. Yeah. Okay.
Boom.
Different adaption, right? We see bits and pieces in the first paragraph, right? Don't go to Egypt, because we had that already. We're going to Abimelech, right? Again, but I guess it's a different Abimelech, probably an Abimelech the second or something. Otherwise, he would be like, I've heard this story before.
Or maybe, or is Abimelech like Is that even possibly just like a title of some sorts? Is it a name?
Could
Do
have
we
been
know?
originally. Could have been originally. It could have been like a Philistine sort of title. But yeah, absolutely. Um,
Interesting. I was wondering because I was wondering, I was like,
and
that can't be the same damn guy. Like these dudes
it's
don't
not.
live that long.
So
You
either
know what I
so
mean?
right. So again, we are assuming in this case that it's good writing and that it's a different person or a
Yeah.
title. It's also possible that it's bad writing and they just kept the name. Um, that's also possible.
Mm.
So the men of the place ask him about his wife. So Rebecca's just as hot as Sarah is.
Mhm.
And he says, she's my sister, for she was afraid to say my wife, thinking the men of this place might kill me. Right. But wherever Isaac and Rebecca were, Abimelech, the king, can look out his window of his palace
Right.
and he sees Isaac going to town on his wife.
Like, where are you at?
Where
Like
are you? Where
that you're
he's
just out.
like looking out the window of it's the king's window. It's like he's,
Wouldn't you be a
okay,
little
whatever.
careful if you're near the king's like courtyard and stuff? Like,
Right,
hello,
exactly. Apparently not.
some
He's
decency, especially if you're trying to hide. You're not very
right.
good at it.
Not,
You're just
not
you're
very
just not
smart.
good. Not
Not
smart.
good.
Come
Not
on,
very smart.
Isaac.
Come on,
Huh.
Isaac. You just needed it. He's just like, don't worry.
Right?
Don't worry,
Rebecca was
sweetie.
like,
No one's gonna
no,
no one's
I
gonna
told you.
see. Not in the
She was like,
king's court.
stop.
Not right where the king is with the window. Come on.
Right. Yeah.
Don't be
Could
such a
just
brute.
molest me out here in public,
Right.
please. Thank
Do
you.
it. Right.
Um, I
Um,
don't think there's any real truth of these stories. I just think they're
none.
stories.
None.
Yeah.
Um,
Um,
no.
they must have
None.
served some purpose to some people, you know. Now we're trying to
Right.
figure it all the hell out.
Yeah. I don't think this is there's no historical accuracy to this. This is most likely a some sort of ancient Near Eastern folk tale or legend with a moral story that has been adapted and put into our Torah 3 times because it was popular. It was a popular sort of folk tale story of
Mhm.
like, tell me about the sister wife, whatever, as it goes down to generations. That's probably what it was. So then, right, Avimelech, the king, just goes up to a random dude and he goes, aha, so why'd you lie to me?
Aha.
Don't you know what's going to happen? Your God's going to come after me or whatever it is. Right. And so he protects himself, knowing that, if you molest this person or his wife, so he's safe. And then God blesses him. God doesn't really apparently care that he's going through his father's scam. He blesses him and he gets
Right.
so blessed that Abraham is like, you're too rich. Like you're too big. You leave, like you're making me look bad. Sort of thing. So
That is
yeah,
really wild to think of how
it
that
is.
story turned around. Because
Yes.
okay, so we start out with famine in
Right.
all of the stories, or at least 2 of the stories?
Good question.
At
We're
least 2
getting
of the
into our
stories. Sorry,
our
am I jumping?
no, it's
Okay.
okay. We're going to get into our synoptic look, right? We're going to see the context, right? And yes, we see there was famine in 2, right? We'll get back to that.
He was like, "I
Anticipating
spy
danger, the transference, wealth acquisition, divine intervention, all this other stuff.
Maltese."
Okay, so yes, your spidey sense is good in terms of thinking, putting these together. What's going on? The context. What is the
Yes.
context in this case? Um, so there's a long context. And by the way, I put the this is Isaac, the second story, and then the first story. So it's backwards. Okay, so it goes
Okay.
oldest to newest. So
Right.
Avram, Abraham, Isaac. Right.
Okay.
So in the first story, yes, there's a famine in the land. Right, and he
Right.
goes down to Egypt. Right. It is not mentioned in the second one. But this one is great. This is such bad writing. Imagine,
Besides
imagine,
the other famine that I had
right,
mentioned on the other time, that
that
one time.
not my story. I know it sounds similar, but not my. Like it's such bad writing.
Listen, I promise. Look,
Besides the previous one, this is the new one. It's just so bad.
the new and improved famine.
It's a
This is the
new famine,
bigger, better
right?
famine.
Yeah. I mean, guys, you have to be able to look at the Bible sometimes and just be like, this is bad writing. Not all the writing is good. Some of it's beautiful and powerful and wonderful, and sometimes it's crap. So in this case, this is a little bit of crap. So the context is much more deep and weird for the Isaac one. Okay, there's a famine. I was journeying, but then there's like, hey, we should go down to Egypt, but don't go down to Egypt. Go to this one and keep my commandments. Like it's very embellished in terms of the setting, the context. It's very interesting, but you can really see like, and we should see, by the way, the fact that they jumped with a famine from this story to this story, but we skipped this one. Our spidey sense should go out and think that it is entirely possible that Genesis 26 author did not know about Genesis 20, but did know Genesis 12, and that Genesis 20 was a separate adaptation from Genesis 12. In other words, motif adaptation doesn't necessarily go, this is adapted to this is adapted to this is adapted. Imagine this is the main story of Genesis 12. One author goes this way,
like a
one
web,
author
it
goes
kind
that
of.
way, and they all end up in the same canon. Okay. Also very cool. Okay. Danger. Anticipating
Will
danger.
Robinson.
The danger is the same. Okay. You got yourself a beautiful wife.
She's a hottie patati.
She's a hottie with a body, right? And apparently it is, dangerous to have a hottie with a body around. So, right? And so we see again, as he about to enter Egypt, he goes, what a beautiful woman you are. You're hot. Hey, let me think of this awesome scam I could use. And then to benefit from that. And then in the second one, he just goes, she's my sister, guys. You know the rest. Like, no big deal. And then this one, it's later, right? When he goes, don't, hey, thinking the men of the place might kill me. So again, it's looking more and more like Genesis 26 has a more relationship to Genesis 12.
Right.
And Genesis 20 was just a separate adaptation. Yeah. You can see that Genesis 20 was a different kind of attempt to do so. Pretty cool, right?
It is. It does make you wonder, like, how they did eventually come together and why they were tweaked like that. Is this just encampments of different people carrying,
right?
It's just cool.
Right. The whole idea of why things end up in the same canon is a whole nother discussion. Like, how did this happen? Right. But, and again, that the redactor had their own sort of stuff. Why did they keep certain things but leave other things? Like that's a whole thing. But, okay. Matriarchal transference, right? Which basically means taking it, and taking the wife.
Taking the wife, taking the property.
Right. Exactly.
I don't believe that. I'm just for the audience's awareness.
Right. Give me 1 second here.
No worries.
Okay, so in the first one, Abraham enters Egypt. The Egyptians see how beautiful she is. She ends up at the palace. Okay. The second one, King Abimelech has Sarah brought to him, but there's no like context there, whatever it is. And then in the third one, he doesn't even get to that far. Abimelech doesn't get to that. that far. He just looks out and he's like, someone told me that was their brother and sister, but I'm thinking not so much.
Right.
It looks like they're, brown chicka wowing in my courtyard. So yeah. So again, very weird in
Yeah,
terms
that
of
one's a bit different.
why are they trying? They're trying to do something with this. They're trying to which again points to that it was probably either an Egyptian legend or something, and the story had something else to do with Egyptian culture that didn't work in the Israelite culture, and so they were stuck trying to figure out what were we going to do with this? What are we trying to, um, obviously the first one I think is the closest one to the Egyptian or Near Eastern legend, where a beautiful woman goes into Pharaoh's palace. That's just how it goes. That's what it was. The second one, we've moved away from Egypt. We're in Philistine territory, and it's again a very simple change. But then the third one, it's like, don't even go there. It's like the whole. I read that one. It didn't work. Do something else. It's very, very strange. The whole thing is very, very strange. I mean, the truth is, if you read these stories, none of them really make a lot of sense. No one comes out looking great in these stories. I mean, no one. God, the leaders, Abraham, and not even Sarah comes out looking great. So they're just weird stories. Wealth acquisition. Again, this is probably from the first story, right? It went well, right? Avram got a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
That does not happen. Now, we will talk about Isaac's gain of wealth down, but that's something different. So
Okay.
I've not forgotten about it, but we're going to talk about how's that a little bit different. Now, here's the fun part: divine intervention, right? God sends Pharaoh in Genesis 12 the plague, right?
Fun
Which is
times.
again morally problematic because Pharaoh didn't do anything wrong. The second story, God of Israel comes to the Philistine king in his dreams and gives him a prediction, which is also weird. Why is God doing that? Why would God care? Why would
Why
are
is
they
he
trying
talking to him and not telling Abraham, like, yo, chill out, bro? Like, nothing's going to
right?
happen.
Exactly. Can he not control Abraham? He's like, hey man, my patriarch is about to try to screw you over. Like, why would he
Right.
do that? Why? And so they're trying to. I mean, this author is trying to make God look a little bit better than he did in the first story, because God doesn't look so great in the first story. He looks like either he doesn't care, it's unfair, or he just doesn't know what's going on, right? Now that is possible. You and I both know that in Ugaritic literature and Near Eastern literature, there are gods that make huge mistakes, that get brash and angry and hurt the wrong person, or like that happens all the time.
Right.
But the Israelite God is supposed to be not so much in this way. So in this one, right, it's very much like he comes to him in this dream and he's like, don't do this and you'll be okay, right? The third one, Abimelech actually sees it himself, right? He sees there is no divine intervention in
With his
that
own
way.
peepers.
He sees it and saves himself from apparently plagues or death or whatever by catching them in the act. So it removes God's morality stuff completely, right? So you don't have to worry about that anymore. So that's a different strategy. So you can see the first story proposes a problem in terms of God's behavior. The second story attempts it by saying God's going to come and save this. He's on whatever it is. The third story removes him. and says, you know, God isn't involved in that thing. So we see
Mm,
two distinct strategies in motif adaptation as to how to make the
right.
God look better. Very cool.
Now he's not even there
No,
with
he's not
that
even there.
part.
Right,
Interesting.
exactly.
Yeah.
Not even there. Okay. This part here, because of the what happens first and what happens second, you see that I put this together. Okay. Basically, the local king's actions and when the king confronts the patriarch. Again, the morality play here, like in terms of this was immoral, right? So in the
Mm-hmm.
first story, right, the local king isn't said to have done anything. It's all, remember how it says like basically nothing,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just like we have no idea how he found out, we have no idea what he did, it's just blank, right? We just assume some things happened. um the second one, right, Abimelech calls his servants and tells them what happened. He goes, uh-oh, I made a mistake. And the men are like, crap, you pissed off a god. Don't do that.
Right.
And so that's his action. His first action, right, is before confronting the patriarch, his action is this, right? That is not necessary in the first story because it's not written. We don't hear anything that Pharaoh does. The local king's action in the third story comes afterwards, right? Anyone who does this, I'll put it right. So the confrontation is flipped from the local king's actions in the third one. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
So so in okay. No. You're good. You're good.
Sure. All right. If
Yes. Yes. Nope.
obviously like I'm going fast because it's 8:57, but if
No,
you
no.
guys are
Yeah.
like lost, tell me because I don't want to just keep going. But basically, the king has to do something, and then the king confronts the patriarch. The king's actions in the first one are not there.
Right. He has
They
no
come
action.
first in the
Or
second one. They come after in the third one. Okay.
okay. Right.
Then the confrontation, right? There's always a confrontation of the leader to the patriarch, being like, what is the matter with you? Why would you do this? Right? In Genesis 12, Pharaoh, who has somehow found out, which we don't get to know about, says, what are you doing, man? Why'd you do that? Why would you tell me this? Like, she was just a hot woman. I'm allowed to have single women. I thought she was single. What the crap?
Yeah.
Right? This is a fair question to Avram, right? Abimelech, who has already had a bad dream from a god, summons Abraham and he goes, what are you trying to do? Right? You were trying to do this, and even your God came in and stopped me from doing it.
Right.
Right? I love that the fancy translation. You have done to me things that ought not to be done, Abraham.
Yes, that's why I was like laughing.
Right,
It's
exactly.
just funny.
Just terrible. Just terrible. Basically, I mean, the Hebrew is like, you've done stuff you shouldn't have done. Like, that's what
Right.
it is. But
Yeah.
and he goes, and he asks him right out, right? What is the purpose of that? What were you trying to accomplish? So much so that your God even came to me in a dream and was like, you're going to fuck up. This guy's going to screw up, right?
God's calling
There
on
is
them.
a real morality issue here. After in the third story, the King Abimelech, also a great question, Dan. Like, who cares, right?
He loves
There
it
are
in there, don't
probably
he?
1,000 other concubines and wives or whatever it is going on.
Yeah.
In the third story, remember, God doesn't have to do anything. There's no divine intervention. Abimelech is smart enough to look out his window and see them, and he goes, dude, what have you done? This is not good. There's guilt. So obviously we're aware of that. If you sleep with a married woman, you're not supposed to do that. There's guilt upon you, right? and then he makes the charge, and he says, sorry,
Why,
my
thank you
Roomba.
for telling us.
Thank you. My Roomba wants to get into the discussion. So yeah, so obviously there's this like moral thing that people are aware of, or at least the author is aware of. Okay.
Right.
Absolving the patriarch, right? In the first one, Avram doesn't even apologize. He just pieces out, right? In the third one,
Real
Isaac
jerk.
doesn't apologize. He just gets wealthy. Only in the second one do we say, hey, man, this was my perspective.
My
I
bad.
thought y'all were going to kill him, and I can make things good, dude. I can talk to my God. No problem. Let's just hold on there a minute. Like, so in this one, again, another good sign that the second and the third adaptions were separate, because the third adaptation does not think about this at all. But the second one does. It's interesting to see what the authors care about and what they don't in terms of their thing. And then finally, well, almost finally, we've got wealth acquisition. Again, in the first story, that's not a part of it. Abraham makes a mistake. Avram makes a mistake, pieces out. In the second story, Abimelech says, hey, you apologized. You made things good, sweet. Let's make you rich. You're a good guy, right? No harm done. All right, we're good.
Little B.
Right.
Little baby.
He comes out the best in Genesis 20. The third one, it's just like, all right, peace out, Abimelech. I'm going to be over here. And God, for some reason, blesses him, blesses the crap out of him, and gets him rich. This is the only divine intervention that we see. God is not involved in any of this, but he blesses Isaac with wealth, so much so that the Philistines are like, dude, who is this guy? Like, who is this dude? Very, very strange, like, reward for this, right? Again, moral issues. And then finally, the resolution, right? If there is one, right? The first one, Pharaoh says, out, like, get out of here. Like, you sent plagues for a mistake. You suck. Your God sucks. Get out.
You're all a bunch of jerks. Get out of here.
Right. Bunch of jerks coming through Egypt. Get out. Little do they know, Exodus is coming.
Oh, boy.
But in the second one, right, Abraham says to God, hey, this guy's not so bad. Let's take care of him too. And apparently God had already sent a plague to Abimelech, even though he said he wasn't going to. He had closed up all the wombs, even though he said, I'm going to warn you so that you don't do it. You didn't do it, but I did shit anyway.
Wow, right.
Not good writing, guys. Not good writing. It makes no sense that God would have closed the wombs of these if he warns him ahead of time, knows he's not guilty, knows what's going on. He did it anyway. Total jerk.
And how long is this going on that wombs would be closed that you would even take notice? I mean, you at least need to be like several weeks before you to realize.
I'm telling you, right? I mean, how long? How long was were they? Yeah. So it is a saga, and again, not great writing, because how do you know that? How do you, like, what happened for them to know? And again, this is why, to your question, this is not about historically accurate. This is storytelling, right? God did this. It doesn't matter who knew and how like, that's not what this is about. This is just a story. A historical narrative would have been like, someone walked in and 1,000 wives had their period all at once, or something like something like that, but again, this is just a story. And then here's the resolution of the third story, right? Isaac gets rich, and he says, "Get out of here! You're making my people envy you." End of story. And Isaac again doesn't look great, and Rebecca's not even mentioned really, in terms of her. Like, these are very patriarchal centered stories,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we talked about, just to sort of wrap this up in a bow, we talked about a lot of this stuff in terms of what's the purpose of these stories, right? They could be some sort of morality issue. They could be about relationship to rulers. It could be about sojourners and visitors. It could be about wealth acquisition. Here's a get rich quick
Mm-hmm.
scheme of the ancient Near East, right? Except that doesn't happen in the first one, but it could become one. And then, so that we don't really know what's the purpose of the stories, right? They don't really. The only thing that affects the meta narrative is where they go, right? In terms of the journey between Avram, Abraham, and Isaac, of like, where are they going, right? And
Yeah.
gaining wealth as they become a nation. But that's it, really. All of that could have been accomplished without these sister wife tales. And then what are the problems? We've highlighted a lot of problems, right? The first story we talked about, why is Pharaoh punished when he's innocent? How is he supposed to know that Avram and Sarah are brother and sister? It makes no
Mm-hmm.
sense, right? It compromises the character of the matriarch, right? Wealth is acquired due to her beauty and possibly more, right? The second story, God's confusion regarding Abimelech's innocence. God says Abimelech sinned when he didn't. Shouldn't God know better? Right? All that sort of stuff, right?
Yeah.
And the third story seems to overstate the fact that the story is original and authentic, right? In terms of the, don't worry, it wasn't this famine.
Forget
It
that
was another,
famine.
right? He's going above and beyond, saying this is it. This is the original. Like,
This is the important one.
right. It does solve some of the major problems of the previous narrative, specifically the morality issue, the the reason for wealth acquisition, all that sort of stuff, by removing God. Right. The resolution isn't great, but everything is certainly laid out very clearly. In other words, it's the most specific and clear story. It doesn't have a lot of gaps or problems, but it's definitely not great in terms. It doesn't solve all of the issues, but it solves the major issues of this first and the second one, which I think is what it was supposed to do in the first place. So, or at least the first one, right? So yeah, so that, my friends, is the sister wife narrative.
Sister wives.
The sister wives. Your question here, my man. What was the the Akedah? Okay. The binding of Isaac. Different story, totally different reason. We could probably do something about that also. Great question. It's a terrible story.
There's a lot of interesting little tidbits behind that story I'd never realized. Like such as Isaac does not come back down from that mountain in that story, but he does all of a sudden just appear. So it's like, well, what
also, Isaac's supposed to be like 30 in that story. He's not a kid in that story.
Really?
Like the whole, he's like a grown man in that story.
Oh, interesting, because they teach it as that he's a boy in the other one, and he's like, not even asking, like, hey, Dad, where's the sacrifice we're supposed to?
Yeah, it's a terrible story.
More bad writing? No, that's not possible.
No, it's fine writing. It's just a bad lesson. It's just a bad story.
That just happens to be a shitty
Yeah.
lesson. No moral lesson.
Right.
Oh,
Oh, JW October is featuring that story. Well, whatever they have to say about it will
bro.
sure be just terrific.
Oh gosh,
Um,
yeah.
yeah.
Something to do with having faith in Jehovah.
Ugh. Ugh.
He'll save you at the
Um,
last minute.
right. That's not his name. That's not his name.
That's not his name. They call him
Um,
El. They call him
you call
Yahweh.
him Jehovah. That's not his name. All right. So, overall, friends, again, using the tools that we have put in your toolbox of looking at stories from a synoptic way, looking at the things that you can see. The characters might change, the resolution might be a little bit different, but you can see the steps as to what is happening. Use those tools in your toolbox next time you're looking at stories. And if you say, this sounds familiar, follow that, pull that thread, and you may find yourself looking at intertextuality, a text that interacts with another text and ended up in the same canon or outside the canon. There's plenty of outside canon stories that interact with stories that are in the canon. And so definitely use these examples to say, like, yes, motif adaptation is very much there. And there's other examples of it. So absolutely, more cool stuff in this way. And I do appreciate you guys listening and your questions, and I appreciate your patience since my computer died for no reason, just because.
Because lucky 7. That's why.
Lucky 7, or
what did it?
I don't know.
Yeah.
God came to me in a dream and said, "Don't teach on this," but
Right.
I did anyway because whatever. So, but anyway,
those
that's it for me.
dreams.
Ryan, any final sort of thoughts to give to our peeps?
No, but that was really interesting. I, in fact, didn't realize that both those stories of Abraham were the same story. I really thought that was 2 different times that he sold his wife. I thought he sold his wife twice.
Yeah.
So hey, but that's, now I realize, now I know better that that's just that story adapted, and then we see it even change even further with now his son up to some of his daddy's tricks. So that's really cool. I enjoyed that. I'm not sure exactly what I have for next week. I possibly will have a story about Daniel, Ezekiel's Daniel. I'm thinking of maybe going over the Aqua epic, but I have to see how long, because it's really long. So I need to have a little think about it and go through it and see. But there's a possibility that we might get to know a Rephaim. Yes, a Rephaim, Daniel, and maybe get a little peek of who Ezekiel was actually talking about.
Man.
Yeah, not Daniel, not the book of Daniel, the Daniel that Ezekiel speaks about, which is possibly that Rephaim. So I've read that story several times, but I need to yet pull all the scriptures that will give me some evidence.
Right on. And as we approach Halloween, I'm thinking I'm going to do an awesome Halloween episode.
Ooh,
when we get there. Close. Talk about ghosts and goblins and zombies and witches and all the things that occur in our Bible and stuff like that. So,
give me the spooky supernatural. I love it.
I will. I'll do it.
Awesome. Okay. Well, that's excellent. I look forward to it. We will see you all next week. Thank you to everybody who showed up, and we appreciate your comments. Please bring them. We might not be able to get to them right now, but we're going to put them in our little treasure chest. We're going to pull them out and get to them. So thank you for the suggestions, and thank you for the comments, the likes, the shares. If you haven't already done that, please give us a like. Thanks for coming. We'll see you next week, y'all. Bye. Thank you, Rabbi Mike. That was awesome. Good show. Bye.
Right on. Peace.